Hey, this is Ben Solomon, and welcome to this episode of the Techno Leadership Show. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to improve the well being of your technology team. Now, in most environments, if you have been working through the whole career ladder, starting in help desk, then going to system administration, network administration, going into then systems engineering, network engineering, infrastructure engineering, and then growing up from there into management and leadership would have given you some taste of what it's like being on the front lines and being in other roles, because in a lot of cases we are dealing with a lot of the thought process and mental management from the past, where most businesses are trying to get the most out of the least investment, which is, going for efficiency over effectiveness. And by doing that, most tech staff have had to deal with situations where they are doing two or three people's jobs. And this is not, a joke. It's I've seen it in one too many places where tech staff are doing multiple people's roles. And business owners, business leaders don't care, don't understand, and think that we should all have the minimal amount of investment and get the maximal amount of output with that. In those sort of scenarios, what do you do? Like, the well-being of a staff is very, very important, because getting good staff and holding on to them is not easy. And let's, for a moment, take in the fact that you've got a good team under you and you want to do everything possible to incentivize them to stay. Obviously it is their career, and I've always, no matter how much I've incentivized my team by doing everything I can to give them the opportunity to stay and grow, when I realize they've hit a certain ceiling in the business and there's no opportunity for them to grow, I've always encouraged them to look elsewhere, with the proviso that they can grow and they know what they want, they have clarity over where they want to go, and I'd facilitate as much as possible the process for them to upskill and make that move, whether it's sideways, up, whatever it might be. In terms of well-being, the things that have worked for me are more around being that person who steps in the gap and protects them from the fire that can come, whether that's help desk staff, whether it's system admin, network admin, hardware engineer. I've always put that protective barrier of me in front of them so that they don't have to deal with some of the really harsh situations that they can be exposed to. I've always stepped in, figured out what needs to get done, and then I'll delegate based on workloads, based on expertise and skills, as well as natural strengths and weaknesses. And because I took the time to understand all of these aspects of my team members, I knew who I could delegate what aspects of a project to. Was it perfect? No, because as I said, each of us were doing probably two or three people's jobs. But in that, we tried to do the best we could in terms of being able to share the work around, ensure that as much as possible we were working, good hours, not working the 80 hours that sometimes can happen. Most of the times we were working around about 50 hours with about 40 being in the office and about 10 being from home, sometimes a bit more than 10 for the senior staff. But for most of the staff, I've usually ensured that if they get there at 8 o'clock and their knockoff times at 4 o'clock, they get to leave at 4 o'clock. And if they are working with a client, in most cases, I might step in myself and go, look, you can head off, I'll take care of this and deal with that, because my normal leaving time was 4:30. And one of my senior staff also normally left at 4:30 or 5, depending on the day. And we worked out between us to be able to allow these staff, especially junior staff and the staff who were dealing with a lot of the customer issues on the front, on time. And then even for us, if there was no real need, i.e., we had a huge outage or something like that, we tried our best to leave at a decent time so that we could get back home, at a reasonable hour, spend time with families and do all the other things and decompress and have time to be able to do, stuff outside of work that energize us. And when we come back the next day, we are able to do our best work. So well-being, things that helped is having some form of schedule. I personally am not the perfect person to follow strict schedules, but I know there were team members in my teams who were sticklers for perfection. They were, they had specific schedules that they followed, which worked for them, which meant it allowed them to have mental peace. For me, having kind of a freedom in some form of structure is what gives me mental peace. So trying to get to bed at a reasonable hour. I'm naturally a night owl, so which means getting me to bed before midnight's a bit difficult. So doing that is an important part of keeping my well-being going. But also with my teams, I've tried as hard as possible. Like when they have had to do work from home, they're not doing it late at night or having to get up too early in the morning, unless in very niche cases when we've had to work with vendors in the US or UK, with us being in Australia. But in most other cases, I discouraged doing work stuff at home at that time of night when you're meant to be resting and recovering. So having put myself in the gap to protect them from stakeholders and customers in difficult situations has been one good thing that has helped save them a lot of heartache. Making sure that I maintained a standard of you have to lodge a ticket before we do work, and me taking responsibility if something goes wrong and someone complains, for me to go to leadership and say, look, this is the agreed format. It means that we can distribute work properly within the team. So it needs to happen no matter what, to the point where even the executive team would log tickets most of the time. But other staff, they logged we went from being about 5% of jobs being logged to, by the time I finished in that organization as the technology manager, having up to 92% of our jobs logged by staff. And then we logged the rest of the jobs, so that we had up to probably 98% of all the main break fix and that sort of jobs logged in the system, so that we could utilize that to then get funding, get resources, get staff training, get all that sort of thing. That's beneficial, something to have in place, having those policies in place, having a process in place. And when people don't follow processes, what I've normally done when people have not followed those processes of logging tickets and things like that, I've replied back to them, and I've said to my team members, reply back to them and say, log a ticket and that's it. That's the end of that conversation. You don't log the ticket for them, because the moment you start doing that, they then think they can do that every other time. So push back. And if any ill will comes along, I'm the one who goes in between and protects my team members and says, look, this is from me. This is the agreed thing with the executive team. These are processes that you have to follow so that we can make sure tickets are prioritized and our workloads are managed. And in most cases, people are happy to, once they understand why something exists, they're happy to follow. And then, things like meditation, having quiet time before going to work is a beneficial thing. Something that you can't probably enforce with team members, but something that you can suggest as a thing in your one-on-one, saying, hey, look, have you tried these sort of things? It might help you with the kind of stress that we're dealing with and all of that. And then beyond all that, ensuring that you have some form of coverage so that everyone gets to have their breaks, and they can have their lunch breaks, they can have a coffee break, whatever they're entitled to, so that they can do that. The other thing that I've also done is making sure that we had training and resources, and also allocated time that they could stop doing their project work and other stuff, go sit somewhere and do training while on work time. Even if it's an hour a week, it gives them the opportunity to upskill, but it also gives them the feeling that you actually care enough about their growth that you're making this time available for them. Anything and everything you do it for them. Have your one-on-ones on a fairly consistent basis, even if it's quarterly, so that you can figure out what's going on in their lives and support them and support their growth, and also unblock pathways if they feel they have a perception that something is preventing them from doing their best work. That all contributes towards well-being. Well-being is not one thing that's done. It's multiple things that come together and forms an emergent system, or emergence as it's called, which is 1 + 1 + 1 is not 3 in that system. It could be 20. So the thing is making sure all these 1 + 1 + 1s are done well, that contribute to the holistic improvement of their well-being and the way they're supported, the feel of fulfillment that they get from being in that team and working for that organization. And as a manager or a leader, it's on your head to ensure that you create that culture, create that space where they feel safe and they feel like they are enjoying their job and they can do their best, most meaningful work. So hopefully that helps you out. I wish you all the best in your journey as a tech professional, manager, and leader. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit the subscribe button so that you're notified of future episodes as they are released. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you in a future episode.